Hey everybody, how's it? Aloha, this is Jeeves here, your old composer here at the Decomposer Lounge with another long-form reaction to the band Gojira. I want to thank everybody on Patreon. Patreon members are like my co-producers, and it's also a wonderful support because you know all the ads you might see on this, of course, is what? It's for the publishers, the writers, and the bands to make money. So you know the monetizing thing for me, I do this for the love of it. But you know everybody Patreon, super cool beans for helping me out on this. Now these 4 songs that I have chosen did come from Patreon. The only caveat is there were some suggestions to do the live versions. The only reason why I didn't do it, even though they were DVD quality, was because they were much longer versions. I've got to try to keep this to a certain length for some future fun stuff that's coming up that I'll let you in as soon as the final business word is has been said. Still in negotiations for something, but we'll see. Anyhow, like usual, chapters are below. And because this is a long form, I only stop once in the middle of the song, and then I'll glam a little afterwards and get right into the next track from that. So the chapters will be down below. If you just want to hit your favorite tracks, you just go there. So let's do this. The very first song is Where Dragons Dwell, and this is from the album From Mars to Sirius from 2005. So here we go. Gojira, long form, here on the Decomposer Lounge. All right. Okay, this is really unique how they structured this track. Now, obviously, you know, when we're starting to push 7 minutes on songs like this, you know, there's going to be creative instrumental sections that are going to be, you know, probably utilized a little longer and heavier. And they obviously did that. That first minute was, the first 2 chords that they were playing was kind of melancholy and kind of chill and stuff. And then they got really dark and heavy with the, you know, the chords that came afterwards. I love their usual with their pinch harmonics and stuff that they use for these accents at the end of phrases and stuff. The bass players have an blast in these instrumental sections. And then we power it up, obviously, into the vocals. Obviously, you know, I don't listen to the of the vocalist as as far as focusing in the lyrics, but the depth of his voice, extremely powerful. But one of the things I want to point out that I find that's really unique about this is it sounds, the way it was engineered, it sounds like it has like a stadium mix to it. And what I mean by that is it's got a long, deep, rich reverb that's consistent throughout all the parts. It sounds like they used perhaps a stadium reverb or a concert hall reverb. And it wasn't just on, let's just say, because, as an engineer, you can isolate reverbs and use different types of reverbs, delays to get the ambience that you want to. But it looks like they did this power mix, and what they did, I'm just saying, I'm guessing, I don't know what happened. But what they do sometimes is they'll go ahead and the final mix out, sometimes they'll add some ambiance or a reverb to the overall mix before they go to the mix out. If that's not the case, it just, when we go back and listen to it, listen to how huge and hall-like, thunderous it sounds, notwithstanding obviously the power of the playing that's going on there. But the mental imagery they give us through sound, that this is in some site like a giant, dungeonous cave of hell. I guess so, right? Where dragons dwell. I swear to God, I didn't plan that. I swear to God. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start this back up, and let's see if I won't say anything for the rest of this track until the very end. Here we go.
I met the dragon in a cave by the mountain. Now I bring the evidence, the beast is alive. This senseless army will strike in the morning, and then a star will rise and shine in the sky. But I grow in passion, cannot stand the weight, and I start to dig within, and the mean is startled to hide. In the region of me, a great dragon is lying on the wealth of a mighty world, my own world inside.
Okay, I do have to stop here really quick. Was there two singers in Gojira, or do they switch off? Because I did hear what sounded like two different tones in the vocal performance and that very deep, heavy, growly kind of sections. And also, I do want to make a little bit of add a note to that reverb thing that I said earlier, is that the voices are nice and present and pushed up hotter and doesn't seem to be as washed out, which obviously it would muddy that up and everything in that performance. And something else I do want to say, it's just my personal opinion, obviously, that because this has such a huge hall sound, remember it just went into all those sound effects and then blew up into this heavy, darker thing. So I guess I was a little early with my comment about it being a big cavernous kind of a mix or something. But, you know, thankfully so for the drummer with those 16ths on the kicks, you know. I believe that, you know, the chugging would probably get washed out quite a bit with the reverb on it. So the kicks are really huge emphasis on the chugging and the work that the guitar players are doing. But yeah, just had to stop and kind of mention that. Wow, this is great. I haven't heard a fade out this song ever on this channel. Of course, by me speaking over it, I just ruined it. You know what I love about Gojira, and I think I may have mentioned, I've done like 10 of their videos already, so there's a huge, I think there's a playlist. If there's not, I'll put one down below of all the playlists and stuff from the Gojira. But what I've really taken away from them thus far in my experience with them is that they really have a unique approach in as heavy and as growling as their performance, his vocal performances are and stuff. It just started on me. Sorry. There's always some kind of tonal value to it. Very dark, deep notes that are being held out, also with quite a bit of what I'm hearing here. So that's something I like to kind of glow on a little bit. But this track was really great in the fact that I said earlier, it just really rinsed on particular phrases. It just let it hit and just dangle for a minute and a half and just let you sink into the storyline. And once again, my really big takeaway from the whole thing is just the power of that mix. What am I doing here next? Oh, really gave it that dark, heavy, hard, like I said, cavernous dragons dwelling somewhere kind of a vibe. And the bass sound was just absolutely sick. And if you notice, the bass also at the very beginning was doing a lot of sliding around and stuff like that. And the tone of the mix also left a great pocket in the middle, kind of forward of the kick tone for the bass to really live. So I didn't have to stretch to actually hear the bass. Even though I have been glamming on bass in the last few months because I think I'm a closet bass player, but I'm, you know, Smoke on the Water is about as far as I can get. But, you know. All right, let's go on next. This is going to be, the song is The Gift of Guilt. And this is from the album L'Enfant Sauvage. Special edition, actually, 2012. So I don't know if that means it is a remix. But, so let's go ahead and do this. This is The Gift of Guilt. Gojira. Let's do this. Got to start my software. You see, I'm trying not to do edits here and stuff, so, you know, my biggest panic is that in the middle I'm going to get a Spotify commercial or something. All right, let's do this. the rubberiness and the depth and the darkness of the bass tone is crazy. But what I love here is what the guitar playing is doing at the beginning. Now, it's funny because remember I talked about in the first song, we're talking about the depth of engineering and how it's got this huge cavernous sound. So we've got the guitar opening up with an arpeggiated kind of pattern. And it has just a little reverb on it. It's not too much and everything. But what was so cool is the drum came in almost desert-ass dry in its sound. I think there was an early reflection to it, which was just a little bit of a reflective ambient, you know, which can be crafted with mics and rooms or actually with plugins, obviously. I also love the drummer had done a couple of really super cool, kind of slightly off-time fills that kind of took us away at that beginning while they had established that pattern, you know, before the vocals came in. And this time, because the ambiance wasn't so forward or so mixed in with the guitars, you can hear a little bit more of the beefier chugginess of it. Something else that I just love what they're doing is I love it when musicians use their artifact style type of performances. I don't know if it's artifacts, not quite the word, but the nuances of those pinch harmonics becoming a very important part of the rhythmical arrangement, and having to be so consistent to hit him at the, you know, in the same tone with the pinch harmonic. I've tried to do it a few times. I'm learning. I've gotten better at it and stuff like that as an old guy who's just going, well, that's really cool. How do you do that? And but I love how they managed to put that into the arrangement. You know, at the very end of a phrase, you're like, cool, hey, you know. Sorry, it didn't sound like that. Once again, I go back to the vocals. They have this great ability to add these tones. They're discernible tones. Obviously, it's not a melody with, you know, intervals that are being sung, you know, very melodic and stuff. But when it's all going down there, within the scale in which the song is written, they are kind of holding a root tone or a dominant tone or something. But either way you look at it, it fits within the scale of what they're doing, and I really dig that. You know, to me, it's a completely different version of that power growling that goes on compared to ones that are just like extremely powerful, and it's like metal slam poetry, which is still fantastic. But when they have the ability, when they pop tone through there somehow, I really like it because then it really adds to the arrangement of itself as that dominant note, let's just say, through the changes and stuff, and a lot of times seems to hang on that. But this is a completely differently engineered environment, so the environment is obviously different than the first one. But it does sound like they do rinse quite a bit on establishing the ambience of their power, which is a super cool thing. Okay, let me go back a little bit, and then I'll finish this one up here.
Building connected tissue to a maze of lies. Well, it's a starving orphans. The final chord is gone. Our sins are all over and over again with slow. We're sick and tired when this wind blows. The reflex is insane. We must forgive and stop blaming ourselves for this now.
Maybe I'm missing something. Do all the songs fade like this? Is Gojira known for that? I mean, I love it. For me, it reminds me of the days, you know, when I was engineering and stuff in the late 70s through the 80s. You know, we'd have to sit there with their hand on the faders going, oh yeah, I remember those days and stuff. You know, we'd sit there and have our coffee and our cigarettes or whatever we're doing and go, okay, ready for the fade, here we go. What I loved about what they did here is the same thing they did with Dragons, Dragons that Dwell, oh, forgive me, Old Man Bobo. I love the fact that they gave us a place to kind of chill for a second. And what I mean by that is that the very first track that I did, there was that breath of air of all that power where it sounded like chimes blowing inside a cavernous cave. And then when they did what they did on this song in the middle to bring that down, I love I don't know how they did that. It was such a great sound where obviously he's got his full power, but he's so far back in the mix. And there is this really killer stereo reflective kind of environment behind there, whether it's a stereo widener plug-in or something of that nature. That was so cool. I think songs like this that really glow on phrases that run for a while, I think part of the magic that so far I've heard with the Gojira tracks that I'm doing right now is the fact that they give us a place to kind of reset and chill. You know, it sounds to me, and even though I'm not reading the lyrics or anything, that Gojira is very journey and heady-minded, oriented, you know, sonic performers and artists and everything like that. They have really big stories behind what they're writing. I did do the lyrical breakdown on Patreon. I think of Amazonia is there, and I read that, and I was like, that's a trip. That is, and it was great to see and feel that, you know, there's that kind of energy and power and political, you know, wherewithal coming from music, because that's where it comes from anyhow, in most cases. Anyhow, so I really, and also the very simple pattern they were keeping, but then the drummer again kept on spiking us. You know, he'd get us into a groove, and then he'd go, take it, you know what I mean? Still in the pocket, but he went ahead and just wanted to make sure he just threw a little bit of, you know, spice in the air for us to kind of keep us locked in. But I like the way that they're fading, and so thus far everything is very heady with this fading that I really dig, and it keeps me kind of locked down. All right, next up, let me try this. This is going to be Another World from the album Fortitude. This is from their recent album, 2021. Now please remember, I know they've got a ton of music, and you know, but I did rely on Patreon members to help me with this. It's probably not going to be the last time I do a Gojira long form, so if I haven't gotten your favorite track, just stand by and chill out. So this one is called Another World from the album Fortitude, which was their latest album of 2021. So let me get my ducks in a row here. Man, this coffee's just kicking in, and it's afternoon still. I'm not doing a morning session here. This is like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was out today walking around on the beach and swimming and stuff, so I'm a little baked. So I had to have some coffee. All right, let's do this. This is from the album Fortitude, 2021 release, and the song is Another World. All right.
We look inside all of your skies.
Okay, this is now obviously if this is their last album, I've gone through maybe I think so far it's been a 10-year spread with the albums thus far. One of the things, first of all, I love what the bass is not doing here. So the opening arpeggiation that's being played by the guitar is not being followed by the bass in unison. It doesn't sound like to me that I can hear in the mix, but it's dun 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 dun. He's doing eighths, dun 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 dun, and then he does some work on the phrase. Another thing that's really totally different thus far, at least here in this show, is the fact that the drummer is sitting back and laying off of all fireworks. And letting that live with the arpeggiation of what the guitar is doing in the beginning. Now, obviously, when the vocals come in, that's something else that seems to be fairly different. Once again, every album usually has, not saying all the time, different, production value. Let's go in this direction, and let's use the engineer that did this album or whatever the case is. If you notice, it sounds to me like his lead vocals, his lead performance is really pulled back a little further in the pocket on this. So the emphasis is on the rhythmical arrangement, the arpeggiation of the guitar, and then the fact that the drums is really, really in your face. But when the hook comes in, once again, this is like signature Gojira vocals. Is that even though it's dark and it's heavy and it's from here, and especially at this album, I think really meant a lot to them. I read one article, I think, because of also Amazonia's on this very heartfelt kind of like, what the fuck are we doing with our planet kind of vibe. Has kind of the harmonies that are happening in the background vocals of the hook kind of have a kind of tribal interval to it. I don't want to get too washy with that, but it's not constructed to really stand out as much as it reminds me of whenever I would hear indigenous people with their harmonies from around the world and stuff like that. There's very unique intervals, that they used to harmonize with, and this seems to have that going on with it. Now, I was just now leaning into the section. I almost didn't want to, stop, but I'm actually going to go back, but it looks like they were doing some really super cool trickery with doing some in and out, maybe some muting of the sends or something like that for you engineers and stuff, where there was a couple of weird effects that were in unison with the drum. Like maybe they kicked on an early reflection for about half a measure and they kicked it off. So I'm going to go back a little bit, and then we'll hear that, and then I'll glam on it after the song's over. And there they go again, leaving us with this kind of heady space on how they want to end their story. So far with these long fades, and especially the way that they're coming off. Let me stop that. Once again, they really flex on letting these phrases of theirs play out long. They really want to drive that home. There's a secret to that. I mean, emotionally, spiritually, when you're listening to music, now don't worry, I'm not going to get woo-woo here, but you know, a lot of times when you have these patterns that have the opportunity to entrench themselves and get you into some kind of, you know, rhythmical ceremonial trance vibe with yourself where you just start to get locked in and stuff, you know. And for bands that choose to just go ahead and glow on that, of course, if it sounds like shit, it doesn't matter, it's not going to work. But this particular song with the arpeggiation that they was going kind of reminded me a little bit of some old Pink Floyd sequence that went back. What was the name of that song where Pink Floyd did that sequence? I forgot what it was. Anyhow, it's intoxicating. And once again, they gave us a moment to clear our heads when the music stopped. And then it goes, which was, I guess, the beginning of this last phase. What I thought was really super cool with that is you can still hear the arpeggiation going, but I do know with what little I know about guitar in the last 15 years, with plugins, with the advent of plugins and stuff like this and pushing things to the max, there's so many incredible ways guitar players can affect their sounds to make it even sound like pads. Like a couple of those last notes at the end, the very last note I could detect, yeah, that was a guitar. But yet, because of the kind of crystally infinitive or infinite style reverbs that are very crystally and glassy and stuff like that, it sounded like the arpeggiation was still going, even though it was completely pulled away from how we were already kind of trained to hear it. But you can hear it way in the background going, they changed the tone and they just let it glass and glide off. You know, and that gets into your head. You know, if you're really sitting down for the journey, that really, really gets into your head and stuff. and once again, yeah, they do kind of play around a little bit, you know, with shifting those energies around. You know, like when the vocals come in, it gets a little more ethereal and ambient of a texture. But then when they get into the hardcore playing on this particular track, it was a little drier and stuff, so you could really hear the punchiness of the chugs and stuff. So yeah, that's my story. Wapner's on at 4. So the last song of the day is going to be from the album The Way of All Flesh. Oh, from way back when, considering today's date, from 2008. And the song is called Toxic Garbage Island. So once again, I do want to thank everybody, just really quick, briefly, for your support. I don't get any money for this, guys. I'm doing this because I love doing it, but hey, I like coffee. You want to buy me a cup of coffee? You know where the links are and everything. So, okay, let's do this. This is from the album The Way of All Flesh from 2008, and the name of the song is Toxic Garbage. Let me save this file. Yes, I saved that file. See, I'm doing this all on the fly, guys. So you know, this is how we roll. All right, here it is. Toxic Garbage Island. All right.
A
hello.
few moments later.
Okay, I got to stop this somehow. I didn't realize this was only 4 minutes. Okay, so now completely after these 3 songs that I just did here, this is completely different in every sense of what I said earlier, except for one thing. The one signature aspect that I just heard that came in here is they just have that incredible knack for these visceral call to action style hooks. These long notes that are being held out. These are like really deep down, tribal, like, pre-war kind of like, I forget what you call that kind of charge, kind of a thing. But now as far as the sounds and everything, completely different. Extremely chuggy and rhythmical and instrumental as far as the rhythms that they're choosing to rip through here and stuff like that. It's a lot drier. The mix is, the engineering is a hell of a lot drier, which obviously in something like this you don't want to wash it out too much at all, if at all, because there's so much going on and the emphasis is on the power of the downstroke or however the guitar players are playing. You want to make sure that you're getting that rubbery and that pick sound against the string kind of thing locked in with the kick. Not that I'm an aficionado of that sound. I'm just learning because I've been doing a lot of homework and stuff as I've been doing this. But this whole rapid fire, I don't know. I'm still stuck on the difference between, this hardcore chuggy sound and what is, and gent. I'm not too sure yet that I quite understand the difference. I think maybe gent's a little darker and deeper, but it's still that really super chuggy kind of sound. And then once again now, with the drums on this, a completely differently EQ drum set, but it's also a lot more present in your face. So when he's firing now, everything totally opposite from the other song. Remember I said how he's all laid back in that one track and he's just kind of giving the arpeggiation all the room to take over the rhythmical arrangements. This is just 100% full on, Ghost Pepper in unison with, of course, the drummer adding all those really super cool things. That ride, you saw me doing that and just banging away on the ride and stuff like that. That kind of stuff just gets me all lit. Okay, let me go back a little bit and here we go.
Destruction out of my way. The green pacific garbage matches exhausting. And the world is sliding away. And the politics are slowly refused with the sacred one.
Jeez, that was without a doubt that performance vocally was definitely from the bowels of hell kind of a performance. You could just tell where he was pulling from and stuff like that. I love the fact that we had the time change in there. Tempo change in there. Twice actually. We lifted, they came up at us and then they dropped us down, then brought us up, dropped us down, and then kept us going until this last one they finished us off going rapid fire. Okay, so there's another thing now that I noticed that is still part of the creative trajectory of Gojira, even though I've only just covered 4 songs from 4 different albums. There seems to be a lot more. There they go with their utilization of their pinch harmonics or string sound trickery, I guess, in order to emphasize part of the arrangement. It's not some kind of like just minute nuance in the back. It's actually part of that. Now, there are other bands, obviously, that I've heard on this channel that do that. And, you know, there's nobody that does more harmonic, you know, pinches and unique things than like, what's I got, the band like Polyphia, sorry. And, but that's a different style, obviously, of performance and stuff. The kick sound on this, engineering-wise, is absolutely unbelievable. That squashy, punchy, powerful bottom end of the kick on this. If you go back and listen to this show, which I'm sure you probably won't, but if you do, that's one of the things I like, you know, when people, if they do go listen to, you know, whatever it is that I do, they go back and listen to it after I've said what I said. And especially in something on the long form where I have 4 different songs from 4 different albums, obviously means 4 different, you know, years typically. And you can hear the differences in the engineering. You go back and you go, oh yeah, hey, Jeeps just mentioned this about how squashy, powerful, punchy this kick is. In the first one, it's a completely different kick sound. It's placed completely different. And that's the beauty about the engineer. Excuse me. Jeez. The engineering. I've always said this. I will always say this. The engineers become an additional member of the band during this process. And yes, the bands, they are the artists and stuff like that. But depending on the canvas that it's painted on, if you would, sonically, you know, the engineers have so much to do with that end sound at the bottom, you know, at the bottom line and what we get as consumers. You know, so the engineers play an extremely important part and role of what it is, you know, when I talk about these bands and stuff. Anyhow, thank you so much. That was my long form here for Gojira. And I hope you dug it. If you're still here, you know what to type in. I'm still here. I plan on hopefully still doing 1 long form a week. I'm going to be stepping that up, and you know, my Patreon members are going to help me produce that. I think what I'm going to do is I'll do a band poll here, and once the band poll settles, then what I do is I take that band, we go into Patreon, and then they choose the songs for me. Or they're definitely, you know, a 90% part of that process. Like I said earlier, I had to call an audible about not doing the live versions because it makes, you know, this maybe just a little too much longer than I need it to be, at least for now. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for hanging out. And let's see, what do I have coming up for my next long form? Oh, not going to tell you. You guys take care. Aloha.